We're live. Hello, really warm welcome to the London Buddhist Centre. It's our Wednesday evening class. So yeah, it's very nice to be here and to be welcoming you. So yeah, come on in to the Shrine Room. So we'll just wait for a few more people to join us. We'll start at 7, so we'll just give it a couple of minutes. So I've got a very lovely technical team here this evening. Britta is behind the camera. I always get this confused. I'm in front of the camera. Yeah, Britta's behind the camera. So Britta, could you let me know how many people have we got and anyone saying hello?
So at the moment we have 20 people.
Oh, great, good.
We have Mercia.
Oh, Mercia.
Nina from New York.
Oh, okay. Yes, Nina's our very regular. Mercia is too. So very nice to have you both. Really warm welcome. And really warm welcome if you're joining us for the first time. So do write in the chat if you're here, your name, where you're from. And we love welcoming everyone to the Buddhist Centre and to these classes, but we particularly want to welcome new people. So let us know if you're joining us for the first time. So yeah, do say hello, and Britta will let me know who's saying hi. Yeah, so very nice to be here welcoming you. So who have we got, Britta? No one? Well, I know you're out there, but you're just not active in the chat. Good.
Maybe they just typed in yesterday's Anne Shorley, and I think there's a bit of
Yeah. Great. Hi, Anne.
From Walthamstow in East London.
Lovely.
And from Woodford Green.
Great.
And then we have James Newton from Battersea.
Oh, hi, James. Nice to have you as well. Yeah, so welcome to everyone. Yeah, so it's just coming up to 7 o'clock. So we're going to make a start. So yeah, we've had more of a meditative focus the last 4 weeks, and we're coming to the last week of this 4-week block where we've been focusing on meditation. And this evening, Subhadramati and I are going to be leading the class, and it's been a special 4 weeks. We've been doing a little bit of a longer class, so the class is going to run till 8:30 this evening. So we're going to start with a short meditation just to arrive, and then Subhadramati is going to take us into the final stage of these meditative, these mental states that we've been exploring over the last 4 weeks. And then we'll have another meditation, a little break, and then after the break there's going to be an opportunity to ask questions. So you'll have an opportunity to ask questions after the break. So if anything arises during the class, you can just make a mental note of that, and you can write that in the chat at the towards the end. Okay, so let's start the evening by with a meditation. So you can just make yourselves comfortable in a meditation posture, and we'll just do a short meditation for about 5 or 10 minutes, and I'll guide us through that practice. So if you're at home and you're sitting on a sofa or on a chair, put a cushion in the small of your back, so just so that you're sitting up nice and upright, or you might have meditation things that you can sit on. So just get comfortable. And when you're ready, you can close your eyes. And you can start the meditation by letting the body be grounded. So let the weight drop down through the sitting bones. And let the weight drop down through the legs and the feet. And as you breathe out, you can just release your shoulders down as well. And just feeling a sense of stability and stillness from the ground. And as you breathe in, let the chest and the belly be soft. And as you breathe out, just releasing your shoulders a little more down the back. And just bring your attention to your face and let the face soften. Relax your cheeks. And all the small muscles around your eyes, just let them release. And release the jaw. And just allowing your throat to soften. And bringing the attention down to the chest. And just feel the breath across your chest. And as you breathe in, let the chest soften and open. And then coming down into the belly. And seeing if you can keep your attention down in the belly with the breath. And just for the next few moments, seeing if you can just stay with the breath down in the belly. And start to broaden your attention out through the whole of your body. Can you have a sense of the whole body sitting, breathing? And then taking in the room around you, any sounds inside or outside the room. And starting to bring the meditation to a close. Okay, so I'll hand over to Subhadramati now.
Good. So, hi everyone. I'm Subhadramati, and thanks very much to Garavavati for hosting the class. And just very nice, isn't it, to just start with a mini meditation to just settle us down. So Garavavati and I are taking the class tonight. So welcome if you've just if you came a wee bit later and you've just joined us. Maybe Britta can tell me how many people are here now. Okay, so there's 54 of us now. So yeah, some of you have joined us during the meditation, so that's fine. So welcome. I'm here actually with an unusually large crew tonight. There's at least 5 of us in the shrine room, which feels maybe 6, which feels like massive. And that's because there's a whole new crew training up tonight because we've got our big mega retreat next week, and Garavavati is going to tell you more about that later. But I'll just tell you who they are so you can imagine them. So we've got Britta, and we've got Sam, and we've got Fijiro, and then we've got Matt. Matt's a regular. The other 3 are, just come along to help some more at the Buddhist Centre. So that's great. So as Garavavati said in the beginning, all through July, on Wednesday night, we've been really looking at, how do we meditate? What happens in our minds when we meditate? I think the whole thing's called "Help, I Can't Meditate," which might be a common experience that we've all felt, at least from time to time. Some of you will have been following us through this whole 4 weeks. Some of you will be your first time tonight. That's fine as well. And as Garavavati said, especially warm welcome if it's your first time. If it is your first time and you want to catch up, then you can watch the other ones on catch up. And, we have been going through a cumulative thing through the last 4 weeks. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to talk for a bit. And then we're going to meditate more fully, and then we'll have a little break. And then after the break is a chance for you to have any questions that you've got, and Garavavati and I will do our best to respond to any of your questions about meditation, and especially what we've been saying this evening. So do sit at ease just now, by the way, even if you've set yourself up for meditation, because I'll probably be talking for a little while. So this evening, being the last night, what we're looking at is what meditation is for. So here we are, we've been working hard, some of us trying to, really deepen our meditation, but in a way, there still is a question of sort of why, what meditation is for. It's quite an important question, a good question to ask. And that's what I'm hoping to be responding to. In a way, I'm responding from the tradition itself. It's not my original thoughts. What is meditation for? And using the model of the 5 intensifiers. That's what we've been exploring over the last weeks. These 5 intensifiers. We've done 3, and actually tonight we're going to kind of have 2 in the one evening. But one way I like thinking about these intensifiers, or what we're doing, is that what we're trying to discover is that the mind, our mind, has depth as well as breadth. I think we're quite used to the idea that our mind has breadth, or at least potentially has breadth. We often talk about expanding our minds, trying to expand our minds to take in different points of view from different people, expanding our minds, I don't know, through travel, through learning about different stuff, whether it's poetry or history. So we're often, I think, fairly familiar with, at least in theory, broadening our minds, which is really, really good, isn't it, to broaden our minds and take in different perspectives. But what I think is even more exciting than that is realizing that as well as breadth, our mind has, at least potentially, has depth as well. There's far, far more to the mind than we can imagine. And that's what we can start discovering through meditation. That the mind has depth, that we can discover the depths of the mind, sort of reveal the depths of the mind to ourselves. And a Buddha, I'm sitting here in the shrine room at the London Buddhist Centre with a huge Buddha behind me, which hopefully is you can see in the screen. And a Buddha, sort of by definition, really, is a being whose mind has infinite depth. Actually, can people see the Buddha? Yeah, we can. Good. I thought the crew was looking a bit perturbed. No, they're fine. They're fine. You can see the Buddha. All is well in the world. You can see the Buddha. In other words, you can see a being who has discovered that the mind has infinite depth. Because I was thinking about this afternoon, that's a way of thinking about enlightenment, is that in enlightenment, you're dwelling in the infinite depth of the mind, and to slightly mix the metaphors, that's unfolding, or that's deepening more and more the depth of the mind. So that's what we've been looking at all these weeks, and hopefully we'll take that a wee bit further tonight. So these intensifiers, in a minute I'll go through what they are by way of a recap. What they're trying to show us is that our approach to meditation can be quite systematic in a way. And meditation isn't a random thing. If you've meditated at all, you'll have realized that sometimes it seems to go really well, and sometimes it just feels terrible, and you just think, oh my God, that was a waste of time. Or it never is a waste of time, by the way, but it can feel like that. And you can feel like, gosh, was I even meditating? I was half asleep, or I was really distracted, or whatever. So you probably experience that it can swing around your experience of meditation. What these intensifiers are trying to teach us is that doesn't have to be random. Whether you have a constructive meditation doesn't have to be a sort of random affair. You can actually create the conditions for meditation to go deeper. And these teachings go right back to just after the time of the Buddha. You can sort of imagine it. The Buddha's taught everybody to meditate. He's passed away. The disciples are all trying to meditate. They're struggling just as we struggle. And then a bunch of them think, okay, let's really make a study of this. Let's not leave it down to chance. Let's really make a study of this. And these people were called the Abhidharmists. Their teachings are called the Abhidharma. But I think it's important that it wasn't just a theory about meditation. It came out of them actually meditating. They'd been trying to meditate. And you could say what they discovered was that meditation is both a science and an art. Yeah, it's a science because it's not random, but it's an art as well, because it's kind of creative. It's not just a list of techniques that you can sort of stick into your mind and then you come out as a meditator. You've got to bring your sort of awareness and intelligence to it, just as you would if you were trying to write a poem or paint a picture or learn to play the violin or something, or learn to, I don't know, be a hairdresser or lay bricks or whatever. You'd realize that it was an art as well as a science. So that's what the intensifiers are. And an image that Garavavati brought in last week was the image of the moon. So this will help us. So enlightenment, this state of being of infinite depth, is sometimes symbolized by the full moon of enlightenment. And so far over the weeks, you could see what we've been doing is looking at different phases of the moon. So the very first intensifier was Chanda, and emotional engagement. And we really explored how you have to have emotional engagement. In other words, you have to want to meditate, just the same as you have to want to do whatever you're doing, but that can't be forced. So how are you going to do that? You've always got to sort of entice the mind. We looked at even sort of seduce the mind into wanting to meditate and keep meditating. And in that first week, we talked and explored a lot about pleasure, that the mind will follow pleasure. So that's the first of these great intensifiers, Chanda, emotional engagement. And that's like the crescent moon, yeah? That's like when you're just starting to get a bit of light from the moon. And then after that, you have to have a bit of resolve. You have to have a bit of conviction. That's when you start to realize, actually, I believe in this meditation. It doesn't always go well, but actually, overall, I'm starting to be convinced that this is a good thing to do, and I'm going to commit myself to it. So that's what resolve is. And then after that, last week was attentiveness. Attentiveness is really remembering to remember. It's remembering to remember to keep steering back. Yes, our mind will get distracted unless we're already enlightened. But by this time, there's sort of enough momentum to kind of just try and steer back, or even if you miss meditation, I don't know, for a few days or even a bit longer, you remember, oh yeah, I'm going to steer myself back to that. So that's what attentiveness is. In that, when we're on this stage of attentiveness, it's always as well important to realize that what we do outside of meditation will really affect our meditation. And if we spend our whole time outside of meditation, I don't know, just looking at thing after thing after thing on the news or online or so on, then it's going to be, if we do that right up to the minute we meditate, it's harder to meditate. If, on the other hand, we make a little bit of time in our lives for poetry, for beauty of nature, for doing nothing, it's going to be easier to meditate. If we're kind to people, it's going to be easier to meditate, than if we spend our time, I don't know, gossiping or whatever. We start to realize that our mind outside meditation affects our mind inside meditation. Well, we start to realize it's the same mind. It's not that we just suddenly put a new mind on to meditate. So we start as what we do outside affects our meditation, and then our meditation affects what we do in the rest of our life. So that all comes under attentiveness, this remembering to remember, starting to have more of a sense of more of us behind what we're doing. And this is like the moon when it's like a half moon, and maybe just a tiny bit beyond. So you've got this sort of illuminated side of the moon predominating over the shadow side. So that's quite decisive, isn't it? A nice image, isn't it? The illuminated side is predominating over the shadow side. So Okay, so that's a little recap of what we've done so far. And I hope you can see that they're sort of cumulative. You start with this, engagement, emotional engagement, then you have resolve, and then you have attentiveness. Yeah, so that each one builds on the other. But what the really exciting thing is that's just the beginning of what's possible. Even when you've got to this half moon stage, that there's more in the light than in the dark, that's just the beginning of what's possible. And tonight, I hope I'm going to be able to give you a glimpse of what is possible. And again, if you want to find out more, I really recommend our retreat next week, where we'll be going into this a lot more. And to give you a glimpse of what's possible, I'm going to change the metaphor again. And bring in another metaphor. Very, very, it's a teaching I really, I find very useful, actually. And it uses the metaphor of two veils, yeah? So it's as if, unenlightened, we've got these two veils. Imagine them in front of our eyes. So you've got these two veils. You know what it's like, even if a veil is quite thin, if you've got two together, it's quite opaque, yes? We've got these two veils obscuring our vision. That's the metaphor. And the outer veil is the veil of craving and hatred, yeah? They're quite strong words, craving and hatred. What they kind of mean is, craving means that tendency to want to bring things into yourself, to make things your own. That tendency to, I don't know, but yeah, just have it. You see something, you want it. Or you see somebody, you want them. So it's that tendency if you want to make it mine. And hatred is the tendency to push away. You don't want an experience. You don't want, it could be an inner experience, your own emotions or moods. You don't like them. You want to push them away. You want it to be over. Or it could be an outward experience. You're fed up with it. You're bored of it. You just wish it would stop. Or it could be a person, when you just think, oh, actually life would be so much easier if just they moved out of my flat or whatever, laughs of recognition from the team in the room. So it's any sort of tendency to push away. And when we're in that, there's a sort of spectrum of craving or hatred, from just a little bit of hankering to out and out craving. Same with hatred, from a little bit of aversion to out and out, you want to kill somebody. But to any extent, when you're sort of involved with them, then your whole view is distorted. That's why you've got this metaphor of the veil. Your whole view is distorted. I think either when you're craving something or when you're hating it, it kind of becomes bigger. That's how I experience it. It looms much larger. And I mean, there's hundreds of examples in my own life I could give of this. I thought for craving, I was just thinking, very commonplace recent example. I was lucky enough to be at the seaside at the weekend and having a picnic. And from the delicatessen, there was this new kind of Montezuma's chocolate that I'd never had before, with peanut butter in the middle. Anyway, it's really nice. And I thought, oh God, I haven't tried that one before. So I got the peanut butter chocolate. But of course, if it's a picnic, you have to have proper food, so we had to, got the little, slice of quiche or whatever, the packet of like fancy crisps, and sitting there on the beach with my friend. And I was eating my sort of savoury quiche thing. Basically all the time, all I wanted was a chocolate. That was the experience. All I wanted was a chocolate. I was thinking, I'm eating this, but I'm not really tasting it, because the chocolate was just enormous on my mind. The chocolate, quick eat the quiche, quick eat the crisp, because that means I can get the chocolate. So that, do you see what I mean about how it becomes enormous in your mind? And of course, it is highly recommendable, this chocolate, but it can never be as nice as I was making it in my mind. The sensible thing to do would have been to enjoy everything, and enjoy the chocolate. But I didn't even enjoy the other stuff, because all I wanted was like this chocolate, yeah. And actually, it slightly made the experience less enjoyable. It actually gave me less pleasure at the whole experience than more. That's the funny thing about craving. It fools you into thinking it's a pleasurable thing, but it actually isn't. And it definitely distorted that. Perhaps in hatred, in a way I can experience it or feel it even more. And I was remembering, this was an older experience when I was on quite a long solitary retreat. A solitary retreat is when you're on retreat completely by yourself, as the name might give away. So I was for 2 whole months in a little hut by myself in the Spanish mountains on this solitary retreat. And my sort of guilty secret, I don't know if it's a guilty secret, but anyway, the thing I'm a bit embarrassed about is like I'm really, really scared of mice. So I'm really, really just like got this phobia about mice. So anytime I'm somewhere like in a little hut, I kind of think, I hope there's no mice. Anyway, then I see a mouse outside. So I saw a mouse one day. I was just sitting there and I saw this little mouse run out of the woodpile, run across the veranda outside, and I thought, oh no, that's it. There's mice in this place. So every single night I had to go through this massive ritual of rolling up all these blankets and putting them all across the gap between the floor and the thing, putting a stone in the plug hole in case the mouse somehow managed to find its way, crawling up through the plug hole. I don't know, doing everything, so this whole thing. And still I never quite slept that well on that solitary, because all the time I was thinking, oh my God, like the mouse might come in. And it was only towards the end of the solitary, actually, I think it was even after I had gone. Basically, I never actually saw that mouse again, apart from that one fleeting thing. And I thought, actually, the place where that mouse existed most vividly was in my own imagination. It occupied a massive space in my imagination, especially as soon as night began to fall. But I'd only actually seen the mouse for about like less than a minute. Out of 2 months, I'd seen a mouse for less than a minute. But that, because of my sort of fear and aversion of that mouse, it was massive in my imagination. And so it makes sense to me that both craving and hatred completely distort our experience. They make things, they over-exaggerate things. We're not seeing things as they are. Through meditation, we can start to sort of get glimpses of life undistorted by craving and hatred. And if we do that, to go back to our metaphor of the veils, it means that at least temporarily, we've sort of taken away, even torn away that outer veil, and we just experience, just the undistorted beautifulness of things. It's lovely. It's not just an absence, it's a positive wonder. You don't just experience it in meditation, you often experience it, well, maybe not often, but what I'm trying to say is it's not uncommon to experience it, especially in nature, or when looking at something very beautiful in art, or listening to something very beautiful music. I remember, kind of half remember an experience in nature, maybe the first time of this, because I think I was quite young, maybe 10 or something, living in Scotland. And anyway, one winter it was really snowy, and I remember just near to our house, just stepping out and just seeing this completely gleaming, snow-filled, glittery field. And it was like my mind became a new mind. It was like, well, they can't really find words for it, but that was what it was like. Suddenly I had a new mind, and it was lovely. It was like, oh, wow, And now looking back, I think I had, at least for a moment, an experience of just that had attenuated that tendency to distort by craving, by wanting, by hankering. after something or pushing it away just disappeared because I had been surprised by the beauty of this, just a playing field, just like a football field, but covered in this glittering snow. It sort of took me out of myself, and for just a moment I experienced a new kind of mind. And why I remember that is that I remember, I think then the next year it snowed again or something, and I thought, oh good, I'm going to have that experience again. But of course I didn't, because I thought it was the snow I thought somehow the snow itself made that experience happen, but it's something much more subtle than that. It was the being surprised into beauty that kind of allowed me to let go of the distortions of craving and hatred. So I think you might have experienced that. If you were all here in the room with me, I'd be asking you right now, have you experienced that? I'm sure that every human being probably has experienced something like that, at least a glimpse of a sort of experience of being surprised by beauty. And that's where meditation can start to take us. And it can, even if we practice, take us there regularly, where we experience a mind sort of uncontaminated, if you like, by craving and hatred. And how it'll be characterized by a sort of subtlety of mind, yeah? You might be just following your breath, but suddenly you realize, oh, the breath feels just sort of subtle somehow. The mind will feel it's like your mind feels like clean, uncontaminated. So that's where meditation can start to take you. And I mean, there's a whole, we could do a whole 4 weeks on that aspect. This is just a little taste of a taste. But that's not the end, because what about this inner veil? So there's the outer veil of craving and hatred, but there's the inner veil. So what's the inner veil? So the inner veil is the veil of delusion. And sort of tearing this veil away, you could say, what I've come to think of is what makes Buddhism, is even realizing that there is a veil, there's another veil. It's not just craving and hatred, there's another veil, and that veil is delusion, the sort of root delusion that there's a real, unchanging, fixed me in here, sort of walking about in a real world out there, when actually the truth is something much more mysterious and much more fluid. While we've still got that veil, and even if we've managed to tear away the veil of greed and hatred, everything we experience is in a sense unreal. It's falsified. We sort of see it upside down, as it were. We see it through this lens of, this real me, and this sort of walking about in this real fixed world, when actually we could be experiencing things quite differently, in a way that I can't even tell you about. One, because I've not experienced them like that, apart from maybe for a split second now and then, and you think, oh, how simple, how lovely, and how simple, and then the veil kind of comes across again. So I can't tell you about it because I haven't experienced it that much, but also because it can't be put into words. But but at the same time, I want to be able to hint at it, because this is what Buddhism is really about. And this is what meditation really is for, just to experience life without either of these veils, to experience life in its fullness and wholeness and mystery and unpindownableness, and if we can do that, then it's a release and a relief, because we're not fighting to control everything anymore. We're living in harmony with life rather than opposed to life. And again, that's what the image of the Buddha is trying to show us, a being who's living in harmony with life, instead of kind of against life, So I hope that image of the two veils is speaks to you. Of course, you can ask questions about this in the second half. So I'll just say the veils again, because it's quite important as an image. So the outer veil is the veil of craving and hatred. And we can start to remove that, not just through meditation, but meditation can be a real way of just starting to experience life uncontaminated by them. And then there's this inner veil, and that's delusion. That's much, much harder, much, much more difficult to kind of tear away. One, because we don't even really know it's there. We just think that's what things are like. That's what our common sense tells us. That's what things are like. But it is possible to remove that as well. And actually, removing the first makes it sort of easier to remove the second. So again, that's why I like this image of a veil. You know how if you've got two bits of cloth together, they make something much more opaque. If you manage to take one away, then it becomes a bit more transparent. And that's what the Buddhist life is lived for, is to live to tear away these two veils and become a Buddha, become a being who experiences life in all its mystery and flow and a wonder. Yeah. So that all might seem like, but I wonder how that does seem. It seems that's very, very, very beautiful ideal. But what can we do here and now? Well, we can practice towards this in meditation. So I've kind of joined the last two stages together. So I've joined the stage of absorption. That's when we see things uncontaminated by greed and hatred. With wisdom, that's when we don't even have this veil of delusion anymore. So classically speaking, absorption comes first. So one is absorbed, and then you see if you can penetrate even more deeply into seeing things as they really are, uncontaminated. But at the same time, it can work a little bit the other way around by trying to explore how things really are. Then we can become more absorbed. Yeah. So that's what I'm going to try and lead us into in the meditation that we're about to do. We'll meditate, I think, for about 20 minutes, and we'll just use the breath as an anchor. So even if you're new to meditation, don't worry, because I'll lead us through it. So what we'll do is, as usual, we'll settle down, we'll tune in with the breath. We'll see if we can, start to allow the mind to settle on the breath. And then we'll start to look at the breath a bit more deeply, yeah? Just towards the end of the meditation, we'll start to see if we can look at the breath a bit more deeply and see that actually even this label, the breath, is just an approximation. I mean, we'll start to sort of try and experience in our experience that we're saying the breath, but what's actually happening? If we really look at it more closely, all that's happening is sort of some air is coming, some air is moving through, some air is leaving. And actually, if we try and look for a thing called the breath, we won't, in a certain sense, looking this way, we won't really be able to find it. So all we'll find is changing sensations, yeah? All we'll find is changingness, yeah? And that unpin-downableness is freeing, yeah? So we'll be looking for the release and the relief when we realize that not only can we not pin it down, but there's no need to pin it down. We're fine without pinning it down. We're not about to, we won't just sort of drop dead or something if we can't pin down the breath. The breath doesn't need us to pin it down in a way. That's another way of saying it. So that's what we'll explore. We'll do that, as I say, for about 20 minutes, then we'll have a little break. And then we'll come back for questions. So let's settle down. I'm going to dim the lights here. Good. So closing your eyes. So really feeling the points of contact of your body with the floor and with your chair if you're sitting on a chair. Or maybe you've even got meditation cushions at home. And just see if you can get a sense of your weight dropping down through the chair or cushions, through the floor. So you're creating this really stable base. And see if you can really use this stable base to see if you can sit still through the meditation. Anytime you feel any urge to move, just coming back to the points of contact of your body with the floor and the chair. And the rest of your torso is rising up. Your spine rising up in its own natural curves. Your head just poised. And see if you can soften your face a little bit more. And see if you can soften your belly a little bit more. And now just noticing that your body is breathing. So you don't have to make any effort to breathe. Your body is just breathing all by itself, as it were. All that you're doing is just paying attention to the actual sensations of the breath. And just looking for any subtle pleasure in the body as you follow the breath. Perhaps the pleasure in the touch of your hands. Or the sensation of your face softening a little bit. Just keep following the breath. Keep noticing pleasure. If you notice your mind's gone away, just keep coming back to the body more broadly, and then to the sensations of the body breathing. So just steering back. See if you can get closer and closer to the actual sensations of the breath, just as it is. Now just starting to notice the changingness of the sensations of this thing we call the breath. Not forcing anything, just letting that changingness reveal itself to us. Not thinking about change, but directly experiencing changingness. And then we might see that all there is a flow of changing sensations. Nothing to hold on to, just change. See if there's any feelings of relief or release. As we experience the unpindownableness. Starting to broaden your attention out again. The whole of the body. Any sounds round about. And then when you're ready, opening your eyes and bringing the meditation to a close. Very good. So, good. We just put the lights up here. So, yeah, well done, everyone. It was certainly very still in the shrine room here with those of us here, and I hope, I hope that that was fruitful, that meditation for you. So we're going to have just 4 or 5 minutes little break just now. We will just be rearranging ourselves here. And maybe in that time you could reflect on your meditation, reflect on what I've said, and if you've got any questions, you can even already be starting to put them in the chat box. And then Garavavati and I will be doing our best to respond to any of your questions. Okay, so see you in a few minutes.
Okay, so welcome back. So welcome back to the second half of the evening. So in this part of the evening, there's an opportunity for you to ask questions. And I know we've got a few questions already in the chat. So if you've got any more questions that have arisen from the evening, then do ask them. It's really, really great to have questions about meditation or about how what we've been saying, what Subhadramati's been saying this evening might bear fruit or have a consequence in your life. So we're really interested in questions connected to the meditation practice and what we've been talking about this evening. And just while you're formulating your question or perhaps writing it in the chat, I just wanted to say that this book, a lot of what we've been talking about over the last 4 weeks is in this book. It's called Mind and Harmony. It's by Subhuti, who's a member of this Buddhist tradition. He's a great teacher and he's a great writer. And I've got a copy of this book and I've read it about 3 times, and it's all highlighted and annotated, and it's really, really good, and it goes through the intensifiers. It's a very good book. So if you want to read more and learn more about this, you could get this book. But also our retreat next week will explore similar material. I'll say a little bit more about that at the end of the evening. So for this next little bit, Subhadramati and I are going to we don't usually say answer people's questions, do we? We say we'll respond to your question, because we can't guarantee that we'll be able to answer them. So we've got Matt behind the camera who's going to field us some of the questions. So Matt, you can give us the first question, please.
Yes, so Oliver has asked, within the context of meditation, is hatred the same thing as, or at least similar to, aversion?
Yeah, so Oliver's asked, in the context of meditation, is hatred the same thing or similar to aversion?
Well, I brought in those terms. Maybe say I use them interchangeably, and I think it's just useful saying aversion, because sometimes you can think, oh, I don't have hatred. Well, I can think that, I'm so good, but actually, aversion shows that, nearly all the time I'm pushing something away, so every time I'm pushing something away, that would be, synonymous with hatred, as I don't want this aspect of my experience. So good clarification, Oliver, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so Sophie's asked, which has 2 questions, we've sort of linked up. So she enjoyed your example of the mouse, but she thought that throughout the example, your fear stayed with you throughout the time you were there on retreat. And she was wondering, are there any times where you've been able to diminish the fear or the craving or hatred? A follow-on question was, when you have awareness of craving or hatred, what's the next step? Where do you go from there?
Yeah, I think that's quite a good question. So a fear arises, and maybe it's a familiar fear, like Subhadramati's fear of the mouse, and you notice the fear, or you notice the craving or the aversion, and then what do you do? Sorry, I hadn't actually quite thought it through in my mind, but I think it's a good question. So, well, for myself, in meditation, this is probably what is easier to do, is to really, a bit like what Subhadramati was leading us in the meditation, is to try to get a bit closer to that direct experience. So can you feel into that feeling of aversion? How does it feel to push something away? How does it feel energetically? How does it feel in the body? So in a way, it's bringing more and more awareness to that experience. And then usually what happens for me is I can't really control the outcome of that, but usually if I can stay with the experience and really feel it in the body, and in a way try to let go of the narrative. I guess that's what Subhadramati was saying, that it was the idea of the mouse that was creating a lot of the anxiety, and it lived in her mind more than in sort of her sort of waking reality. So if we can really feel into that experience, sometimes, not always, sometimes something can sort of break through, which is beyond our experience.
Yeah, that's good. I think the main thing that Garavavati is illustrating is that it's counterintuitive. You've got to do the counterintuitive thing, especially when we're working with aversion. It's very nature. We want to get away from the experience, but actually, that's the very thing that will make it worse. By actually doing, as Garavavati described, we can see, well, actually, this thing I'm calling fear is just a flow of changing sensations, actually. So, and then there can be a freedom can arise.
Yeah.
Okay. So Fred has asked, said that he's struggling to get beneath thinking about technique when he's meditating. And it creates tension and he can't come back to the body when he's thinking so much about technique. So should he be trying to bring awareness to his thoughts at all in this case?
So Fred's asking a question that he's getting a bit caught up in technique, and it sounds like it's making Fred be more up in his head than connected to his body. So there's a question: should he stop being aware of his thoughts to try and counter it?
Should I try to bring awareness to thoughts at all?
Should I try to bring awareness to thoughts at all?
Yeah, well, because it's hard, isn't it? I wish I always wanted Fred, if you were here, I'd ask you a subsequent question. Well, it's good to notice you're having those thoughts. We're not trying to stop thinking when we meditate. In a way, you could say, yes, we're trying to bring awareness to thoughts, to feelings, to emotions, and so on. I wonder if a simple answer might be to, looking at these intensifiers is go right back to the first one. That makes it sound like right back to the beginning, but if you think of the first one as the foundation, this emotional engagement, then which is really pleasure, really sort of saying, well, where do you notice pleasure in the body? Otherwise, it becomes an exercise of I'm telling myself this thing to do, which you never persuade yourself to do. So I would say probably a remedy for quite a lot of things is to actually look back for, well, where do I notice any even tiny bit of pleasure in my body as I'm sitting? You'll always feel pleasure physically. Even the more subtle pleasures have a sort of subtle physical counterpart. So yeah, maybe it is just the touch of one hand on another, or your weight dropping down, or your face softening. Like look for that and then sort of build up from that foundation. I hope that's helpful. I don't know if I'm directly responding to the question, but I kind of think you can't go wrong if you do that. I don't know, would you?
Yeah, it's interesting because what's just come into mind, I think that's really, really good. I was thinking about sometimes we do these courses at the Buddhist Center called Who Hates the Metta Bhavana? The Metta Bhavana is this practice which people can sometimes get a bit stuck in their head. And one of the tips is just imagine that you're getting into a warm bath when you're in the meditation. So there's something about seeing if you can sort of drop down into the body. But next week we're going to be doing that on our retreat. So Fred, if you sign up to our retreat, I think there'll be some good tips actually of how to navigate this thing of, yes, there are techniques, and we don't want to just get stuck in the technique and stuck in our heads.
Okay. So we've got another question from Mircea, I hope I pronounced that right. Said they've had experience of getting underneath thoughts, but instead of a pleasant release, they felt fear arising. And they were asking, could this be because they're not used to experiencing their mind in this way?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Did you want to respond?
I could say something. Yeah, that's a great question, Mercy. So when fear arises, what Mercy was saying, getting beneath thoughts, but then fear can arise, and your own intuition is that because you're not used to that? I think that's probably right. Anytime, well, we love the familiar. It seems to be a sort of truism in human experience that again and again we're drawn to the familiar, even if the familiar is limiting or even unpleasant. We're drawn back to that. We're frightened of the unknown. So I think it's not uncommon to feel a bit of fear or even a lot of fear if we start to, we get the very thing we long for. We long for our thoughts to attenuate and calm down, and then it happens. We're like, oh, this is all familiar. I can't. It's a bit scary. A teaching that I came across a couple of years ago I found really, really useful. The teacher was saying, what happens is whenever we have a new experience, we feel fear. It's almost like we point our minds to, and then we think, oh my goodness, I feel fear. But almost in the same breath, there's also an experience of sort of newness and exhilaration. And all we have to do is sort of turn our head and look at that bit instead of focusing on the fear. I find that very, very useful, actually. I don't mean literally turn our head, but that's what it can feel like inside me. I think I have the experience a bit new, feel the fear, but think, that must mean I'm going into something new. Why don't I just explore that and enjoy that even? And I find that side by side with the fear is something that is much more, it's even more than pleasant sometimes. It feels like a sort of truth, which is very sort of mind expanding. So I hope that helps. One, to say, yes, it's not uncommon to feel some sort of fear, but you can, instead of focusing on the fear, think, that's because I'm having a new, unfamiliar experience. I could, what's that like, Yeah. I don't know if you've got anything.
No, that's great. It sounds really exciting. I've got anything to add. It's great.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that it for questions? Or is there any? We could have another one. We've got time for one more if there are.
There is one more, yeah.
Yeah.
Also from Mercy.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
When you meditate, do you sometimes guide yourself with words, or is it mostly, is your awareness led non-verbally?
Okay, I could answer that as well, because I do guide myself with words quite a lot. Now, some people, for example, are more visual. I'm more into like poems and stuff like that. So certainly in the beginning, certainly if I'm not feeling very concentrated, like in my typical morning meditation, I tend to use quite a lot of words. It's even just before I meditate. Sometimes I even say to myself something like, now I'm about to do the mindfulness of breathing. I might even add a bit of a poetic flourish. Sometimes I say, now I'm about to do the mindfulness of breathing, taught by the Buddha, practiced by the Buddha, now I'm doing it. So I say quite a lot of words to myself silently, because I usually meditate with other people to get myself into it. But then if I'm lucky enough or sort of skillful enough to get a bit more concentrated, then that sort of attenuates. Words are almost then become a bit clunky, and then it is more non-verbal. Again, I think this is quite interesting because it ties in with the area of thought in meditation. That some people kind of commonly kind of think, you shouldn't be thinking in meditation, but you can think if you're using your thought, if you're using words, that's the same faculties that you can, if you're using that in a directed way, then you can guide yourself. So as I say, at the beginning, I'm often guiding myself quite strongly. And then, let's say, for example, your previous example with the fear Mercy, if you may use a few words just to say, this is the unknown, that's why I'm afraid, but there's no need to be afraid. So you could say something to yourself that's still within the meditation. That's still meditating. It's not meditating to do that, because you're using your thought and even your words, either sort of verbal or subverbal, to take you in the direction you want to go. I think that's a very good question and interesting, the different sort of levels of that.
Great, thank you. Thanks for the questions. Yeah. Okay, so we'll start to round up then. So I just wanted to say, what could be your next steps? So we finished our 4 weeks of this course, and next week we'll be starting something new. And next week actually we'll be sort of almost halfway through actually a retreat, which is starting on Sunday. So Subhadramati and I and other people, Maitrabandhu, Jnanavaccha and Surya Gupta, are going to be leading this retreat. It starts this Sunday in the evening, and it runs right through to the following Sunday. It ends around midday the following Sunday, and it's really an opportunity to find out the potential of your mind. And what we've been talking about over these last 4 weeks, we've been talking about meditation, talking about how we can experience our minds, the sort of depth, the richness, the beauty that we can experience just in everyday life, sort of with our everyday mind in a way, deepening that. So a retreat is the perfect opportunity. It's creating really, really good conditions for you to start to train your mind and to discover something about yourself, about your potential. So on the retreat, we'll be having meditation sessions. There'll be talks about meditation. There'll be talks about Buddhism and how these sort of ancient teachings can be relevant to us in our sort of contemporary lives. So I'm really, really looking forward to the retreat. You can sign up for the retreat, and the great thing is it's free. Isn't that wonderful? So you can sign up for the retreat, and you'll get the full program there. So Britta can post the link to the retreat, or Matt can post the link to the retreat. Thank you, Matt. And you can sign up for that. So that would be lovely to see you there. And just the last thing for me to say is just to really encourage you to participate in the culture that we have at the Buddhist Center. So at the Buddhist Center, we have this sort of radical economy of generosity. So it's been so lovely this evening because we've had 4 volunteers joining us, and usually the whole Buddhist Center is run with much more volunteers actually, because there's usually much more people here. But everything that we do at the Buddhist Center, we try to give freely. And this class tonight is free. We want as many people as possible to be able to participate in this class, and we want to share these teachings of meditation as widely as possible, and we want them to reach as many people as possible. And for that to happen, we need means. So we'd really, really like you to give. If you can, give £10 this evening. It will just really, really help us to continue to offer these teachings freely. So like I said, this class is free. But if you can, why not give to the Buddhist Center this evening? Your money will be really, really well invested in just spreading these teachings, reaching more and more people. So again, Matt's going to post the link to our Just Giving site, so you can click this evening. And why not do it now? Now is always the best time to do it, and it'll be really, really greatly received. Okay, so we will be back next week, won't we? But we'll be in the midst of our retreat. So I really hope to see you for our retreat. Yeah. And we're going to end just with another short meditation, just for about 4 minutes or so. So again, you can just set yourselves up in the meditation posture. And as always, we can start just by settling. And give ourselves a bit of time just to let the mind do nothing. We don't need to take any information in. We don't need to think about anything. Just let your mind rest. Let the cushions or the chair take the weight of the body. Allowing the weight to release as well. And feel your body. And feel the breath. And just sitting. And broaden the awareness out so you have a sense of your whole body. And you can start to bring the practice to a close. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. Good. Okay, so we'll leave it there. So thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you on Sunday.